Welcome, and Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
So we are talking about the daily offering, right? The lamb in the morning and the lamb in the evening. And we were actually in the middle of a Rashi where they were talking about here. This is the previous sentence, actually, where it's talking v'isar, and this is talking about the libations that went along with the lamb, each lamb. Isaron solet, 1/10. This is actually a tenth, I believe, of an ephah of solet. But let's see, isaron could actually be it is a measure. So let's take a look and see if I can find this here, if it talks about it. No. So it must be 1/10 of an ephah. So there's an ephah, and it's 1/10 of that. It's a dry measure, right? Solid is fine flour. So balul v'shemen katit, that's mixed with pounded olives. We discussed that Rashi. We had an extensive Rashi on that. Reva ha'in, a quarter of a hin. So that's a liquid measure. Look at that. Here's a hin. So a hin would be, well, he's going to tell us, right? So it must be a kav. I would have to think, trying to figure out the measurements here. By the way, here's the approximate modern equivalence of these amounts. Okay. This is the smallest amount, was a log. Okay. V'nesech, and the accompanying wine. This is here, right? Revi'it hahin, 1/4 of a hin. So yeah, okay. Yayin, wine, lekeves ha'echad, for each lamb. Let's take a look here. Yes. So reva hahin, right? Shlosha login, 3 logs, right? Because a kav, although that's interesting here. Interesting what he's saying here. 3 logs. So it's right. There we go. Because 3 calves are a 1 hin, and 1 calf is 4 logs. So there we go. V'nesech, he says nesech in so lisfalim, right, for the bowls. Kamo sheshaninu, as we learned the Masechet Sukkah in the Tractate Sukkah. Shnei sfalim shel kesef hayu. There were 2 bowls of silver, barosh hamizbeach, at the top of the altar. Umenukavim, and they were hollowed out. They were hollow, kemin shnei chotmin, like 2 nostrils. Dakim, thin, 2 thin nostrils. Noten hayayin letocho. He puts the wine into that bowl. Vehu mikalech v'yotze derech hachotam, and the wine goes out and pours down by way of that nostril, quote, quote, v'nofel al gag hamizbeach, and it falls onto the roof of the altar, the top of the altar. Umisham yored leshitin, and from there it goes down by the side of the altar, bamizbeach, the sides of the altar, Beit Olamim, of the temple, Uvemizbeach, but in the Nechoshet, but in the bronze altar that, and he's talking here about in the tabernacle, as opposed to the temple. Beit Olamim would be the temple, Mizbeach Nechoshet, and in the bronze altar, Yorid Min HaMizbeach La'aretz, it would come down from the altar onto the earth. So he's trying to give us a picture of what was going on here. Ve'et hakeves hasheni, and the second lamb, taseh bein ha'arbayim, you shall do in the afternoon. Keminchat haboker, and according to the same meal offering of the morning, ucheniska, and according to its libations to asela, you shall do for it, l'reach nichoach, as a pleasing fragrance, ishel Hashem, a fire offering to Hashem, to God. So here we go. L'reach nichoach, as a pleasing fragrance. Al hamincha ne'emar. So the Hebrew simply says it refers to the mincha regard as this, and according to Svaria, the understanding is that it's not just the animal, right, the meat that is of pleasing fragrance, but regarding the mincha as well, the meal offering. Sheminchat nesachim. Why? Because the mincha offering of the libations, kula kalil, it is completely burnt off. So there was the point here is he's making a distinction. Rashi's giving us the distinction between a regular mincha offering, of which only a kometz, that is like a special handful, went up on the altar, and the rest would go to the priest. But that's a regular mincha. But this is a mincha offering, a meal offering that accompanies libations. And he says, in this case, kalil means it's all included. The entire meal offering is burnt on the altar. V'seder hakravatam, he says, the order in which they're offered up. Ha'evarim batchila, you first start off with the pieces of the animal that go up on the altar. V'achar kach, and after that, hamincha, and after that, the accompanying meal offering. Shneimar, as it says in Leviticus chapter 23, Olah umincha, right? So Olah, of course, is a burnt offering, a whole offering, umincha, and the meal offering. So again, we're being given a little picture here of how this was taking place. Olat tamid, this is a perpetual offering, the dorotechem, for all your generations. Petach ohel moed, at the entrance of the tent of meeting, lifnei Hashem, before God, asher iva'ed lachem shama, which I will designate. That's the va'ad, right? So a moed is also related to this word, which means an appointment. Right. In other words, I like Jastrow's interpretation of designate, which I have designated to meet you there. The daber, to speak, elecha sham, to speak to you there in that place. So again, the idea of the Mishkan, or the temple subsequently, being a nexus point between the divine and the people. So when we say Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, right? When we say for out of Zion shall go forth Torah, instruction, right? We're talking here about the temple. So tamid. So perpetual, miyom el yom. Here it means from day to day. V'lo yafsik yom beinehem, so that there is not a day that interrupts between them. So this is a mandatory daily offering. Shabbos, Yom Kippur, it doesn't matter. This lamb in the morning and the lamb in the afternoon was offered up as long as the temple was in existence and in operation. Asher iva'ed lachem, right? In where which I will designate to be there for you. Keshe ekba moed ledaber elecha, when I appoint a time, right? When I set aside an appointed time to speak to you, sham, there, ekba enu lavo, I will designate it, right, as to come. Vayesh me'rabotenu, and there are those of our sages, lemedim mikan, they learn out from here, sheme'al mizbech hanachoshet, that from above the altar, the bronze altar, Haya HaKadosh Baruch Hu medaber im Moshe, that's the point, the place at which God would speak to Moses, Mishehu Kama Mishkan, once the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was erected. So that's because, of course, the context of this particular sentence. V'yesh umrim, but there are those who say, Me'al hakaporet, that it was from above the ark cover where he received the, the divine message. Kamoshinemar, because there in that connection it is said in Exodus 25, V'dibarti itcha, I shall speak to you, Me'al hakaporet, from above the ark cover. V'asher iva'ed lachem ha'amur kan. And so how do we deal with this, the statement here that says that place, that I point this place to meet you? How do I explain that here? Eino amur, it is not stated amur ala mizbech. It is not actually being stated in reference to the mizbech, to the altar, ela al ohel moed, but it actually is a reference to the tabernacle in general, haniskar b'mikra, which is mentioned in this verse. So it's not there to tell you the specific place. The specific place was above the ark cover, in other words. And God here in this sentence was simply informing Moses, the Jewish people, that God would appear, that he would be present in the tabernacle, and of course, subsequently in the temple. V'na'adati, I think it's v'no'adati, there is a little dot there if you look carefully. V'no'adati shama livnei Israel, I will appear there to the children of Israel, v'nikdash bichvodi, and they will be sanctified through my glory. Interesting sentence. So, telling us that the divine presence is going to be concentrated there, right? And so what's this v'nikdash bichvodi? I will be hallowed or sanctified through my glory. Kavod, I learned a long time ago, is in some ways, it's interesting, right opposite the word kadosh. That in a way, the word kadosh speaks of the transcendency of God, of the divine, and kavod has to do with the immanence. In other words, the ways in which we understand the divine to be so far beyond ineffable, for us to understand or compare ourselves to. And kavod has to do with immanence, meaning the sense of the divine presence, that there is this deep sense of the divine. Let's see what Rashi does with this. Okay. V'no adati shama. Okay. It looks like et va'ed imam bedibur, right? So I will meet with them with bedibur through words. Kemelach, this is like a king, a sovereign, hakovea makom moed, who designates a specific place, right, to an appointed place, ledaber im avadav, to speak with his servants sham there. V'nikdash, right, and be sanctified. Hamishkan, that is to say, he says the Nikdash means he's referring to the Mishkan, the tabernacle will become sanctified, bichvodi, through my presence. Very nice. Shetishre shinatibo, that my presence will dwell there. It will be present there. Umidrash agata, and there is a midrash that says, Al tikri bichvodi, don't read this as bichvodi, through my glory, ella b'mechubadi, right, or mechubadai, but read this as those who honor me, right, those who would honor me. B'mechubadim sheli, that is to say, those who honor me can hear. Remes, and this is considered to be an allusion, or Remes law. He was alluding to him, that is to Moses, mitat b'nei Aharon, that the sons of Aaron would die. B'yom Hakamato, on the day of the Mishkan being set up. V'zehu she'amar Moshe, and this refers to what Moses states already in Leviticus chapter 10. Moses actually makes this statement, Hu asher diber Hashem. That is what God was referring to, Lamor, when he said, Bekrovai akadesh, that I will sanctify myself through those who draw near me. Vehechan diber, and so we could say, well, where did he tell Moses this? What's Moses referring to? Benigdash bichvodi, where it says, I will be sanctified through my presence. So bichvodi, we could understand that this is the beginning, this is the starting point at which the divine alights on the tabernacle. We do refer to martyrdom as Kiddush Hashem, and that somehow God was alluding to this idea that lives would be taken, that is, Aaron's sons would be taken at this particular moment. It still leaves a lot of room for thought and trying to understand it better. But at any rate, that's a very interesting, I believe, right, statement and interpretation. But let me make sure I've got everything here. Right. V'kidashti et ohel moed ve'et hamizbech. I will sanctify the tent of meeting and the altar. Ve'et Aaron ve'et banav, and Aaron and his sons. Akadesh lechahen li. I will sanctify, in other words, designate here, right? Lechahen li, to minister to me. Going on. No Rashi on this. V'shachanti betoch b'nei Yisrael, and I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel. V'hayiti lahem lelohim, and I will be an Elohim to them. So remember that the word Elohim has this idea of judge, of nearness, of giving God or attributing to God in a very personal and profound way that ability to govern our lives. And of course, the prime way of doing that is through the mitzvot, by practicing the mitzvot. We make God our Elohim. V'yadu, and they shall know, ki ani Hashem Elohehem, that I am the Lord, their Elohim, their God, asher hotzeti otam eretz Mitzrayim, who brought them out of the land of Egypt, l'shachni betocham, to dwell in their midst. Ani Hashem, Ani Adonai Elohehem. Make sure. Yeah, I am the Lord their God. And I know we're ending a little early here, but I'd like to stop here unless there's some questions, which I'd be happy, of course, to take. And but we're at the end of a chapter, and I think this is a good place to pause. Any questions? No? Okay. Of course, the issue of Aaron's two sons and that statement are disturbing to some extent, and it goes deep into how we understand life, and also the fact that I really think this also underlies the belief in immortality, that is something to look towards, and that the whole issue is how we earn that immortality. But certainly Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Abihu, drew closer than they were entitled to do. And we recognize there are other statements in the Torah that indicate that when you are in the presence of something that holy, you have to be very mindful about everything. So with that, we'll close today's lesson.